I've been all over this world.
This is bigger than the music.
Welcome to the Village Media Group Chat. From time to time, we'll have special guests, have conversations about topics that are trending and some are not. Let's talk about Sinners in Clarksdale. So there was a grassroots campaign in Clarksdale, Mississippi. For those of you who aren't aware, that's the backdrop for the movie Sinners. That's where it was set. And so, according to Capital B News, in as little as 3 weeks, community members and more than a dozen sponsors put together and planned the Clarksdale Culture Capitals Sinners Fest on May 29th through 31st. And so essentially what happened was there was a private screening in the town because there was actually no movie theater in the town. So imagine the movie was set in a town that actually no one could watch it. I think at one point I saw something like they had to drive 80 miles to the next town to see the movie. So
Yeah.
I thought that was really remarkable show. And I think the best part was that Ryan Coogler and some of the other cast and crew came to the town to do the screening. So I want to know, Desi, like, have you heard about this? What do you think?
Yeah. I actually thought it was a little bittersweet because it's like they actually, like, I felt like that should have been done ahead of time, like, as opposed to coming out after the fact. I think that was one of those things that, yes, it was great that it came together in such a short period of time, but it was kind of unfortunate that nobody ever thought about that in the beginning. Like, hey, these people have to drive quite a ways to even see the movie that's about the town that they're in. That wasn't even shot in the town that they were in. So that's a whole nother story.
Well, let's talk about that other piece of the story. So, Sinners was actually shot in Louisiana.
I wish we could have filmed it here, but how it broke, just tax credits. It was a big movie, big actors, big budget. And tax credits mean a lot when you're in that situation. And I think when we came to check in with Mississippi, that tax credit had been maxed out. It was another few films that had those looks. And that is what it is, right?
I mean, tax credits are sometimes everything. I mean, that can be the difference in a movie being made. It helps so much with your budget, especially on an independent film or a small budget film, because we need every dollar. You need every dollar to make the film. So, and also it actually helps, states that have the tax credit to bring the films into their communities. Helps, bring revenue into the community. It helps, bring awareness into the community. So, the tax credit is everything. I've shot a couple of films that wouldn't have been made without the tax credit. We actually took it out of California to, Kentucky and other areas just because of the tax credit. So it's very important. It's very important. And even when you think of like when Desi was talking with Clarksdale, I think too, when you're in the midst of filming and production and trying to get your movie going, you don't even think about those details in no theater or something there. So that was probably the furthest thing on the mind. But no, I can see why they had to shoot it somewhere else, because if that credit wasn't available, and a lot of times the bigger productions can eat up, like one film can come up and eat up a state's whole tax incentive. So sometimes the little smaller films can get hurt by that as well. So it's catch-22, but if you can get it, it can mean everything.
Yeah, and I understand the reason for not shooting actually there, because like if you've seen here lately, that's the reason that someone like 50 Cent is opening up a studio in Shreveport, for some of those tax credits, and it's a lot cheaper to shoot in a place like Shreveport than to shoot in like a California or New York or somewhere like that. So you definitely understand that, and that's also why Tyler Perry is based in Atlanta, and you see a lot of these Marvel films start getting shot in areas like that, because it's a lot less expensive in those markets than some of your larger markets. So that part is definitely understandable.
And they're gonna take that whole tax credit too. Marvel films, they're gonna eat it out. But yeah, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so but I do have some good news. So for now, Anthony, I know you're a big fan of Sinners
Hmm.
because you have seen it how many times now?
3.
Three. And so for those of us who need to catch up, I've only seen it once, but I definitely have wanted to see it again. It is now streaming on digital platforms for
Awesome.
folks at home. So that I saw dropped just the other day, which is really exciting. So we can all see Sinners at home.
Go see it. It's a must. Go see it. Go see it. Or watch it at home now. So yeah, download it.
Yeah,
Download it. It's time to watch it.
stream it. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. All right, so let's transition from Hollywood to the hardwood. I want to talk a little bit about Angel Reese, Asia Wilson, and kind of the rise of WNBA players branding themselves. So we know that women's basketball is paving the way for athletes to build wealth, like female athletes to build wealth like never before, from brand deals to full-on clothing lines. The women of the WNBA are setting a new precedent. Let's talk about some of the exciting ones. I want to start with Asia Wilson. So
Yeah.
um, I know, Desi, have you seen the new commercial that came, I guess
The
it dropped about a month ago now?
Yeah, the commercial is amazing. I'm a girl dad myself, and so I play slides and all the patty cake or whatever games with my daughter. So I thought it was
Right.
really dope that they included that. It was really cool because, like, I don't know if you've seen the commercial on social media, but I actually like the commercial on social media a little bit better, and that's because they actually have the subtitles, so you can see the words that they're saying.
Mhm.
Like you're presenting that to an audience who may not understand that culture as much. So I thought the touch with putting the captions on social media was a lot better than the commercial that's on TV. Now I'm sure a lot of people seen it on TV, but I felt like if they'd have put the captions there, it would have been like A plus plus.
Oh, for sure. And I think you hit on something that's really important because there's also been this narrative that's been out there that I've seen across a lot of my algorithm is about Black women or being relatable. And if you read the captions, if you're reading and just embodying the full experience of what that commercial brought, it was the relatability was there, right? It's that powerful piece combined with a little bit of innocence that I think oftentimes is lost when we're just looking at Black women and those who are achieving great things. Anthony, it looked like you were gonna pop
No,
in.
I love it. I mean, I watched it again yesterday with my daughter. I mean, she's seen it probably 20 times and she still gets fixated on it. I mean, representation, that's what it's all about. Being able to see yourself on there, being able to see some of the, like Desi said, the things we do with our daughters and things our daughters do, but being able to see that, even a little bit to see her journey in that commercial. I think it's amazing. I think everything about it's amazing from the production, the story, and to show these women empowering themselves and gaining that power with their own lines.
Oh, absolutely. And I think one of the pieces that or the elements of the story that maybe has gotten a little bit lost, and perhaps even by design, is that Malia Obama
Yeah.
uh,
Mhm.
actually directed
Mhm.
the commercial. So that's just an exciting, backstory that
Yeah.
I think we can all get
It's just
behind.
it's the overall representation from the production
Mhm.
standpoint to the talent, everything. I mean, it shows from sinners to this. I mean, it shows that what we can do once we have the opportunity. I mean, we can do amazing things.
Oh, for
and
sure.
and understanding that Malia was behind it, now that may be the spark that allows other young Black girls to say, okay, she directed it. What's that? Or how do
Yep.
I do that? How do I get into that? So that's a great thing that came out of that as well.
For sure.
Yeah. So just briefly, because we're also thinking about, there's obviously a whole revenue engine that's behind that, right? And then we all know that means Asia Wilson she's already at the top of her game, but then there's money in the pocket, right?
Hmm.
Um, Now, just a few years ago, we were all watching in horror as Brittany Griner was detained and then jailed in Russia. And what do you think that I guess that situation, how has that impacted where WNBA players find themselves today in terms of being able to make more money, whether it's through, starting out in college through NIL, which I think is another layer that we'll touch on a little later, but then also once they transition into the professional league, someone like Angel Reese has built a full brand,
Mhm.
and not dependent, they're no longer dependent on having to take advantage of going overseas.
Mhm.
I'm not going to say that the problem's completely erased. There are other places that there go. There's a
Right.
full-on war in Russia, so people aren't going. But there's what do you think? Where do we stand today? Do we feel like we're in a better place?
I,
Worse?
I think we're getting there. I think they with Unrivaled, that was very, successful
Mhm.
and fun to watch this summer. I mean, I enjoyed watching it. I mean, the impact, the energy, the one-on-one tournament, all those things. It was fun. So
Great.
that gave,
Yeah.
players another, stream of revenue in the off season instead of going overseas. I think
Mhm.
as that expands and other leagues like that, open, it'll help. Overseas is still a very lucrative, place for the players because everyone doesn't get the signature deal endorsements, and so some of them have to still go overseas. Now you have to be careful because Russia used to be one of the top places to play. They paid a lot of money,
Yeah.
Yep.
so you have to be careful where you go. But I think some of them still have to go to generate that. But I think as the popularity continues to grow, it's with anything. It takes time, but it's getting there. It's getting there. It may not be getting there fast enough for some people,
For
but it's
sure.
getting there. And I think as these leagues continue to go, and everyone, we have to continue to support. Continue to support. Go to the games, watch the games. All that, and
Yep.
more advertising money will come in. We do all those things, then it'll open up because it's fun. I mean, it's fun to watch. These girls
Yes.
they be balling. It's
Yeah.
fun. The passion, everything they put into it. I think as it continues, and then it's new with Angel, Caitlin, the new group that's in there now. I mean, it's just exciting basketball. So I think it'll continue to grow each season, and eventually, that'll be an option if they want to do it, but not because they have to do it.
You're right.
Mhm. That's
Yeah,
a
a lot
fact.
of players have to take advantage of that, because in one off season in Russia, you might make more money there than you would make in your entire career here, and so,
Yeah.
but you just have to be careful when you're going because a lot of those laws and rules and things like that are definitely different when you leave the U.S. So you definitely have to be careful. But yeah, with the NIL and them being able to do more deals and merch and collabs and things like that, you are definitely seeing these WNBA players and with brands and more opportunity to hear, so they don't necessarily. Everyone may not have to go over there,
Mhm.
like a
Right.
Asia, Angel, or Caitlin. They won't even think about going overseas because they won't have to. And you're
Right.
just hoping that with the new expansion, even getting new teams in, things
Mhm.
like that. You're hoping that that will help the salaries raise, and anytime it's a big game, it seems like especially like with a Caitlin, they're putting her in larger arenas. It's not just the WNBA arenas, but they're actually going into some NBA arenas in some instances.
And yeah, they're able to brand themselves too. Like, and Angel's the blueprint on what you can do. I mean, she's continued to be a brand within herself. She takes care of the main thing. She does what she needs to do on the basketball court. But outside of that, they see that there's more opportunities that you can do and take advantage of. And it can start in college because the college game is always popular,
Yep.
women's college basketball. So if you can start to build your brand there, you can transcend it over. And Angel's the blueprint for that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we will talk about NIL next. So I want to just talk about Najari Kennedy, who is the pitcher from Texas Tech. She is the first softball player to receive a $1 million NIL deal, which I think is huge because if you know anything about college sports, you know that softball, which I played in college, is a non-revenue generating sport.
Mhm.
So not only is she black, not only is she a black pitcher, but she's also the first to receive $1 million NIL in a non-revenue generating sport. And so, conversations I've had, and I think, if we think about the group chat that's been swirling around, really is like, how does this open up the door for more opportunities? Like softball as a sport, you think of tennis or swimming, those types of sports have, or even volleyball, have always been a means to get an education.
Hmm.
But with NIL, this is transforming opportunity uh, for not just Black athletes, but all athletes, to have a different future after they are done playing. So I want to just get your take. We'll start
Yeah.
with you, Anthony. What your opinion is in terms of, you know, how has opportunity expanded? If you were going to give advice to your own kids, what would you do? Or what would you tell them? And let's start there.
Now, I mean, this shows that, I mean, that it is opportunities in some of those other sports instead of the higher revenue generating sports, that so many kids didn't get a chance, or maybe high school didn't even think about going to college, or maybe just getting a scholarship, like you said, so they can get the degree. But now it goes to show that if you're not only an elite player, but have some personality, can market yourself. I mean, you can set your life up afterwards, because you still might not be able to go to a professional softball league that's going to pay you $1 million a year. But now you have a brand. Now you have, a network that's just, huge. And now you can spin that off into a whole nother empire while still playing your sport at some of those
Yep.
other leagues, but don't have to worry about making a living from it, which may be hard, and why some of them not able to do it. So I think it just opens up the door. And we got to still understand that right now, every school can't do that. Texas Tech is a little different. Those
Different.
Texas schools are a little different, but what it does show is that it does open up the door for other schools to want to do that, because now they're going to compete in softball. Now they're going to do this. Now they're going to do it, and especially for the young girls who never looked at it that way, who plays those type of sports. Now they can look at, I can possibly now generate this, create a brand, and have some longevity with my sport, because I can generate money other places and I can still play. And it can also grow these sports, and make them more popular, where more eyeballs get to them, and then they become, down the future, where they can generate revenue as a sport.
Yeah, this one is really, really big because not only is she making that much a year in NIL, but it's at Texas Tech. And this year in the college softball, well, women's college softball World Series, it's actually an all Texas championship. And so Oklahoma was going for its fifth straight championship. And so, of
Mhm.
course, now they're going to put more resources back into their program to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And so I don't know about everywhere, but in the Southwest for sure, there'll be a lot of NIL deals and a lot of money floating around, because this is a big deal for Texas. A good friend of mine that went to Oklahoma, that's one of they always have a good football team, but they're always winning the championship when it comes to
Mhm.
softball. And
Mhm.
so this is, one of those times where Texas and Texas Tech can actually, say they're in the championship. And so, this is an opportunity for these players to make a lot more money. I believe she's really young also. I think she may be a sophomore.
She's only a
Mhm.
sophomore. She
Yeah.
transferred in from Stanford. So she had a
Hmm.
great season last year with
Yeah.
Stanford, and she transferred to Texas Tech, got the in a $1 million NIL, which I think is huge. And I think you hit on something big, is that there are schools who typically dominate in softball. You think of the Arizonas, the UCLA's, the Oklahomas, Florida, those teams. We're sure to see an influx of
Yeah.
money flow through those schools.
Yeah.
Schools, Alabama. Um, so yeah, it's a new opportunity, and I think it's setting the framework for non-revenue generating sports being even more competitive,
Oh,
where
for sure.
NIL may not have been a big part of the conversation. I think it's
Oh, for
opened that
sure,
door.
for sure.
Yeah.
Because the more we can see her, not to, but the more we can see her now, because like we're talking about her. So
Yeah.
that, like, I learned about her, through the deal, and now I'm looking forward to watching her. So now
Yeah.
more eyeballs are getting on her, which brings more eyeballs to the sport, which that's
Mhm.
how it trickles down.
Yeah, and then also it raises questions at a school that loses a player like that. Like my son is getting ready to graduate from Stanford, and so next week actually, and with them losing a player like her, it's some of the Stanford supporters are like, wait, how did we have her and now we lost her and now she's in the World Series? Like that means they're going to start maybe looking to put some money that way. I know on the football side, they just brought in Andrew Luck as like the general manager,
Mhm.
and Frank Wright as the coach. So you can only imagine probably what they're going to do next when it comes to like softball and things like that at a school like
Right.
that.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think it's exciting, and I think we're all three of us are sports parents, so it actually just it opens my eyes a little bit of right now my son plays basketball, and I'm like, you want to try something else just in case maybe you're good at swimming. Maybe swimming is your thing. You never you got the next black Michael Phelps. We don't know.
Right. Right.
Um, all right. Well, I'm going to transition into, as we're talking about higher education, and we primarily focused on PWIs in those big schools that have the money to support big sports, but something that is near and dear to our culture, and I know certainly to me as a HBCU grad, is HBCUs being under attack. One of the things that is happening that I think people need to be aware of is that the politics that are happening at a national level are infiltrating some of even HBCUs who are state schools. So recently, Marva Johnson was confirmed as the 13th president of Florida A&M University. She has close affiliations with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, whose administration has pursued policies seen as some as detrimental to diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives and the teaching of African American history. If you're not aware, he banned AP African American history being taught in Florida schools, for instance. And so critics of Marva Johnson have dubbed her MAGA Marva and are really concerned about her coming in and essentially capitulating to all that the MAGA agenda has in store. She's also one of the also big criticisms about her is that she's actually not qualified for the job. So the board of trustees just approved a $650,000 salary for a woman who actually has no higher experience in higher education. She was a lobbyist.
I just find it horrible that in an institution that talks about love and charity, that there's no love, there's no charity.
There were folks who were on the nomination of candidates, and they were overlooked, and they were well qualified and friends of the university. And at the last minute, Marva Johnson was put into the candidate pool and is now confirmed, which some folks are saying, well, maybe it's a good thing because she'll be able to navigate this highly hostile political environment, while others are like, she's just bad for the university. There's been some outspoken commentary from elite alum like Will Packer and Andrew Gillum. But my question to both of you, and I'll chime in as well, is just, do we worry that HBCUs are under attack, and what do we do as a community if that's in fact the case?
I mean, they're definitely under attack. The eyeballs are not only on the Harvards and Ivy League schools; they're on HBCUs for sure. It may not have they're not they maybe not making it out loud right now that what they're trying to do, but they will try to plant certain people in there to disrupt and to alter what has made us so great. Now, is it issues with certain HBCUs? It's issues with a lot, of course,
Mhm.
certain things, but they're not putting people in place to fix the issues. It's putting people in place to change the agenda, change the scope, the structure, and I mean it's scary. And I think those alarms have to be raised, and we have to kind of figure out how we can hold on to you know some of the last few things we have that's breeded so many successful people, and those people who have come from those institutions got to continue to speak and raise the alarm and mobilize and figure out how we can still, keep what's precious precious.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
if I can, just quickly, Desi, I wanted to, because you touched on something, Anthony, that I think is important in terms of mobilizing the right people to help fix the problems. There's also this funding disparity that I want to point out.
Hmm.
So despite and it's something that the Trump administration does a lot right now is touts all the things that they've done for HBCUs. So in 2019, there was a bipartisan bill that was passed, and it secured $250 million in annual funding for HBCUs, which is great. However, the Biden administration just in 4 years secured $17 billion in
Hmm.
funding and for HBCUs, and that's often lost. But a study was recently done, and it showed that Black land grant universities have been underfunded by $12 billion over the past 30 years. So, Black schools have always been working with the deficit, and I feel like we're adding an additional layer of complexity and just insult to injury by putting folks in place who don't have HBCUs. All skin folk ain't kin folk is basically what the situation is. Go ahead, Desi.
Yeah, this is like Florida A&M is at least one of the schools that does have high profile alumni that can kind of speak out on these issues, whereas some of the other HBCUs may not. So if this were any other school, it may be a situation where this happens and no one ever knows, unfortunately. So the
Mhm.
HBCUs are definitely under attack. This one came up quite a bit because a great friend of mine, Oscar Joyner, Tom Joyner's son. He went to FAMU, and
Mhm.
so and then here in Dallas, there's a very very strong FAMU alumni organization. So they've been out here, making a lot of noise and talking about this. And so once again, having that strong alumni core will bring light to this. Whereas if it was somewhere, like Paul Quinn or somewhere here in Dallas or some of your other smaller HBCUs, they may struggle with that. You also mentioned the funding problem. A lot of times when administrations or people donate money to HBCUs, it's typically always the same ones. Like
Yep.
Morehouse will get funding, or
Mhm.
Howard, or someone like that, maybe a FAMU, a Southern. But there are so many other ones that don't get that funding. And even when, unfortunately, sometimes when our people graduate from these schools, they don't always give back to the schools either, and so they're kind of dealing with that as well. So it's just
Yeah.
unfortunate.
I think you make some great points, and one of the things that as we transition into our next topic is that HBCUs are critical to the core of the Black workforce, right? So HBCUs graduate the highest number of Black doctors, highest number of Black lawyers, and and pharmacists as well. So they are some of the critical it's part of the critical infrastructure of the Black middle class. And so, as we're transitioning into our next topic, I want to talk about AI and the impacts of the Black community. There was a, a a an executive who came out just last week, Dario Amode, and he's from an AI company, and he talked about how AI could wipe out half of all entry level white collar jobs and spike unemployment 10 to 20%. In the next 1 to 5 years, and so he was talking about that broadly across all races, but within the white collar sector. One of the things that I think is really interesting is there was a 2023 study by McKinsey and Company that warned the increased usage of generative AI tools in the workplace could widen the already apparent racial wealth gap between Black and white communities, and that by 2045, experts are predicting that the growth of generative AI could cost Black households $43 billion annually. So the conversation is also two pronged, and we'll get into the next part first. But I want to hear your take on how we're feeling about AI and how it could potentially impact the white collar workforce and even the jobs that you and I do, and then we also want to talk about what it's doing in terms of climate change. But let's start with just the economic impact that it could have.
I'll jump on it. I mean, it's going to have a major impact because I mean it's already there. It's already having an impact. I mean,
Mhm.
I utilize it. I mean, I utilize it a lot and slowly starting to depend on it a little more than I have before. And it's one of the things that we had in a conversation is I believe we have to figure out how to get on board that train and how to you know, learn more and see where the careers are going and implement it into our careers because it's not going to go anywhere. The thing is, it's going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to affect it, and it's sad that it's going to affect us, but it's going to affect us.
Mhm.
So I think we have to figure out how to get ahead of it and integrate it into a life and see where those careers are going, see where those fields are going, and you know I mean, otherwise we're just going to get left behind. I mean, we can cry about it, complain about, it, but it's happening. It's no way we can stop
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very similar to what happened during the pandemic, right? If you were someone that didn't use Zoom or or virtual meetings and things like that, if you were not able to be um, flexible and able to work on your own and things like that. For quite some time during the pandemic, it was no going into the office. So if you were not disciplined enough to work from home, then you were kind of left behind. If you were not up on technology, you were kind of left behind. So while some people will see this as a detriment to the workforce, there will also be a lot of opportunity as well.
For sure.
If you can I have a good friend who is in like gaming and things like that, and so he actually wrote curriculum for like SMU. He has an opportunity now to actually, if you can train the new workforce on how to utilize AI, then that's a actual business now. So
Yeah.
there will definitely have to be people that get trained in that. The younger generation, they'll grow up in it, and so they'll know how to use it from day one. But our generation, older generations, things like that, they may not be as used to it, so there'll be some kind of learning curve. And as Anthony said, if you don't get on board with it, you'll definitely get left behind. So
Oh, that's for sure. I envision the Left Behind looking like the scenes of iRobot, where it's just, there's just mass chaos and everybody's like, the robots are taking over. But what I think is actually important is there's there's a negative perception of AI today where it's like it's cheating, right? When there's opportunity to use it as a tool for efficiency. There's a opportunity to use it as a way to help you learn something faster than maybe you
it.
could. I know that's how I've leveraged it is, trying to gain understanding of a specific topic and break it, asking it to break it down for me like I'm a third grader so that I can just take something that's super complex and be able to understand it more deeply and build it until I get to that, okay, now I'm in college. Explain it to me at
Right.
a college level so that I can better just learn a new topic, right? Uh, so I then want to talk about AI in the sense of what it's doing to the environment for all of us, but particularly what we're finding. And this was a big story this week. There's the NAACP is demanding that the XAI Colossus data center, which is in Boxtown, Tennessee, which is predominantly poor and black, that data center be shut down because it's emitting like formaldehyde and lots of fumes, destroying the water system. So for those of you who aren't familiar, AI actually uses a lot of water. So if you think about like your phone when it gets hot, when it's running constantly, that's what happens with the data centers and they have to be cooled down. And I guess, one prompt could use 16 ounces of water. So that's just like a regular Dasani water bottle. And so what's happening is like millions and billions of gallons of water are being used to cool these systems down, but then the byproduct is being emitted into the air, and it's unknown what it's going to actually do to people. And these data centers, because of land being cheap in poor Black neighborhoods, that's where they're being
Right.
uh, being just plopped, I guess, for a lack of a better word. Um, so I want your opinion on, we see the benefits of AI. What do we think about holding these big tech companies accountable in terms of what happens to the Black community? And then what do we do in in these situations?
I mean, they have to be held accountable. To hear that, that's a scary part of it. Again, like I was saying before, it's not going to stop it. I think what we do again, that's mobilizing again and bringing
Mhm.
awareness to it. Like, educating ourselves right now, and
Mhm.
then put it out to the masses so they can understand, and then just mobilizing. And those communities are going to have to really, really mobilize and fight for their community. It's going to be a lot tougher in this climate with the administration that we have now, whereas before, and I mean, the voice isn't going to be heard, and it may be looked at as, you know, ravaging the streets or getting out. They're going to frame it a different way. But
Mhm.
I think, at times we have to be strategic with it
Yep.
and, figure out how we can combat it because, like I said, it's going to continue to grow. And of course, it's going to come to our neighborhoods. That's how it always is. But I think just like I said, mobilizing, making a voice heard, but doing it strategically because, this administration is not going to just, they're not going to really do anything about it. So we have to figure that out on our own. And yeah, that's what we have to do.
Exactly. And I also would say that this probably is where the importance of your state and local government is
Right.
really going to come in, because
Right.
we know that the federal government at this point, while we have regulations in place for the Clean Air Act, they're not actually going to hold any of these folks accountable. They're trying to roll back regulations that support environmental justice, or support the environment as a whole, because it is more beneficial to the pockets of those of the wealthy to not have to pay attention, but it's detrimental to all of us. So what I would say is that, this is where we have to lean on our state and local leaders, and also the midterms in 2026 are
Right.
coming up.
Yeah.
So they're not as far away as we think, and we
Mhm.
have to get folks to really pay attention to who's representing them in Washington, D.C., because that's the best pushback that we'll have for for the next steps. So I'm going to do a hard pivot into our final topic, which is Kendrick Lamar, SZA, and Beyonce's Cowboy Carter tour. We have the soundtrack to the movement, I think, right in front of us. I think we have to talk about the albums, because over the last year, we have been gifted with some incredible albums that are going to, in songs that will be just etched in time for all of us. So first I want to get your opinion on the GNX album and Cowboy Carter's albums.
I'm gonna jump first, then I'm gonna let that Desi go. Me and him to have plenty of talks on that. I mean, Kendrick. I mean, you talk about somebody seizing the moment,
Mhm.
and and not only seizing it, but just taking it to levels we didn't even see, coming. I mean, so strategic that we went from he kind of, away from the public, this and that, to now one of the biggest tours and Super Bowl and this and that. I mean, it just goes to show you somebody, ready for their moment,
Mhm.
and just continue not only to capitalize on it, but take it to new heights. I mean, to me, I love seeing it. I love seeing it. I'm here in LA. I love Kendrick. I'm a bigger fan than I even was before. I like the way he can, he's not just stuck in his way of this is how I do it. He brought different things to it, brought everybody together, and continue to take it to new levels. So I love it. I love to see it, and I mean it's going to show. I mean the tour. I see how the cities are coming out, how they're rocking, singing the songs, and this and that.
Mhm.
So I mean, it's fire. Cowboy Carter, I'll let Desi, he's a country music guy, Texas and everything, so he can speak on that. But I think it's amazing what she's doing too. And that's Beyonce. I mean, what can you say? I mean, everything she does. I mean, so I'm not shocked by this at all.
Yeah, Beyonce, as a fellow Texan, you know what I mean. It was great that she's spotlighting the black roots in country music and things like that, and she even with her album brought a lot of other black country artists to the forefront, like a Shabuzi and different
Yeah.
people like that as well. And so, and the tour has been amazing. She's got Blue Ivy out there with her. She's got the younger daughter. Seem like they're starting to get her ready for the
Mhm.
spotlight as well. She was smiling and waving a little too hard at first, but now they got it. They got it right now. Okay, like you can do a little bit, but not too much. So, but no, the tour has been amazing. Um, the other day, I think it was actual like it's a stadium tour, and so they performed in the rain, and they had the people mopping up during the dance performances and
Mm.
everything like that. So what she's doing is amazing, and we're really blessed to be in this moment in time and actually see one of the greats of all time.
And you can see how it is when we put our machines together. Like these are two machines. These are
Mhm.
two, powers, and they're showing how it can be done and how we can come together, how we can be strategic with what we do and our delivery and how we can, because we always quote unquote still control the market, but we showing how we can just take it to new heights. They're taking it to new levels, both of them. And it's just like I said, it's amazing to watch. And some of these younger artists should look and see because not only what they're doing, the longevity to what they're doing. This is longevity right here. This
I
is
think
something they
there's
can continue to do this for years and years and years. This ain't a TikTok song. This ain't a
Exactly.
this and that. This is longevity right here.
Yeah, I think you're onto something. So I think both of them obviously are like centers of excellence, right? Or the blueprint for what excellence looks like. But
Hmm.
you really hit on something, Anthony, in terms of like this is what longevity looks like. I think Kendrick is like 37 or 38. And Beyonce is, I think she's 43, about to be 44. So they're not young,
Hmm.
but they are still elevating and reinventing themselves over and over and over again. And I think that is something that's really important. And then when we think about just how both of them are leveraging big pieces of culture,
Yep.
and also putting their stamp on our culture,
Yep.
our history, and always making sure that that's amplified, I think that's really important in a moment where politically Black folks are, they're trying to erase us in many ways, where we have a Beyonce who, to your point, Dusty, is like, nope, these are the threads uh of Black history and the intersection of country music and culture, how it all, bringing it all together. I think that's really critical. And then as Kendrick so beautifully does, he does the storytelling of the culture, right? And there's always layers and depth to the stories he tells through his music. So I definitely feel like there's elements of cultural reclamation taking place right now, and it's certainly exciting. Um, so with that, I think we've touched on culture, we've touched on a little bit of politics, we've touched on what the impact of the AI is on our environment. We talked on business and sports. This is what we want to do every week, and we're really all about just bringing what we have in the group chat to all of you. So give us a subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and follow us and join the conversation. Thanks for joining us.
All right. We'll see you next time.